1900 hours, the 14th of November, 1965, landing zone X-ray, Ia Drang Valley, Pleiku Province, private first class. James Young feeds the last belt into his M60 machine gun as 300 soldiers of the People's Army of Vietnam move through elephant grass 60 meters away. His assistant gunner, PFC Willie Godbolt, cradles 2 spare barrels and watches the feed tray. The ammo bearer, PFC Rodriguez, has 400 rounds left in cloth bandoliers. In 8 hours of contact, Young has burned through nearly 2,000 rounds and replaced the barrel multiple times. The riflemen around him are down to 3 magazines each, but Young's gun is still running. The feed tray snap echoes across the perimeter. That sound, not the crack of M16s, decides who holds this clearing. The U.S. Army enters Vietnam in 1965, believing the individual rifleman is the center of gravity in infantry combat. Doctrine from World War II and Korea emphasizes marksmanship, fire and maneuver by rifle squads, and the infantryman's ability to engage targets out to 300 meters. The M60 machine gun, typically 1 per squad, sees crew drills underemphasized in pre-deployment training. Commanders expect suppressive fire from rifles, with the M60 as backup. But Vietnam's triple canopy jungle collapses engagement ranges to under 100 meters. Ambushes erupt at arm's length. The rifleman's carefully aimed shot becomes irrelevant. Volume of fire, sustained, unbroken, concentrated, becomes everything. The M60 machine gun weighs 23 pounds empty, fires 7.6251 mm NATO ammunition at 550 rounds per minute, and requires a 3-man team to sustain combat effectiveness. The gunner carries the weapon, the assistant gunner humps spare barrels and a cleaning kit, and the ammo bearer drags 1,200 rounds in belted cans. Together they haul 70 pounds of gun and ammunition through paddies, mountains, and jungle. Every infantryman in Vietnam learns the same lesson within his first contact. The squad lives or dies by the M60. When the gun runs, the enemy goes to ground. When the gun stops, jam, barrel melt, ammo exhaustion, the enemy charges. The M60's area fire effectiveness extends to roughly 800 meters, but contact in Vietnam happens at 50. Dense foliage turns firefights into close-range brawls, where muzzle flash and sound matter more than precision. A rifleman with an M16 can put 18 rounds downrange before reloading. The M60 puts 100 in the same span. That volume creates a beaten zone, a cone of lead that forces the enemy flat. But the M60 is temperamental. Feed the belt crooked and it jams. Fire 200 to 250 rounds in rapid succession without swapping the barrel and the gas tube warps. Let dirt into the receiver and the bolt binds. The assistant gunner's job is to keep the gun alive. He watches the rate of fire, counts rounds, readies the next belt, and pulls the hot barrel the instant it glows. The ammo bearer is the lifeline. He scrounges ammunition from the dead, redistributes loads, and keeps belts out of the mud. Fire discipline is the team's doctrine. 6 to 9 round bursts preserve the barrel and stretch ammunition, but panic fire, holding the trigger for 30-round rips, burns through a basic load in minutes. Units that master M60 employment dominate contact. Units that treat it as a support weapon lose men. At Ia Drang in November 1965, Lieutenant Colonel Harold Moore's 1st Battalion, 7th Cavalry survives 4 days of massed assaults because his M60 teams hold their positions and maintain cyclic fire. In the Mekong Delta in 1968, Colonel David Hackworth's mechanized infantry squads mount 2 M60s per armored personnel carrier, doubling base of fire density. During the Tet Offensive in Saigon and Hue, strong points anchored by M60 teams blunt sapper attacks that overrun positions defended by rifles alone. The pattern repeats across 7 years of war. Feed the gun, win the fight, starve it, die. Not the rifleman's skill, but the gunners' discipline. Not marksmanship, but mass. 0630 hours, the 14th of November 1965. Lieutenant Colonel Harold Moore's 1st Battalion, 7th Cavalry Air Assaults into Landing Zone X-Ray, a football field clearing in the Ia Drang Valley, 15 kilometers from the Cambodian border. Intelligence estimates 200 People's Army of Vietnam soldiers in the area. The actual number is closer to 2,000. By 1000 hours, the 33rd Regiment, 66th Regiment, and elements of the 320th Division are maneuvering to encircle Moore's 450 men. The first assault comes at 1300 hours from the southwest. Moore commits his M60 teams to the perimeter's weak points. Each rifle company has 3 guns. Moore cross-attaches a 4th to Bravo company on the exposed southern flank. PFC James Young, 20 years old from Georgia, carries an M60 with a worn barrel and a feed tray latch that sticks. His assistant gunner, Willie Godbolt, has 2 spare barrels and a poncho full of linked ammunition. The ammo bearer, Rodriguez, humps roughly 1,400 rounds. When the PAVN infantry breaks from the tree line at 60 meters, Young opens fire. 6-round bursts left to right across the wall of green fatigues and pith helmets. Godbolt feeds the belt, watches for jams, and counts rounds. At 200 rounds, Young's barrel begins to glow cherry red. Godbolt pulls it, drops it on the dirt, locks in a cold spare. The gun never stops. Young burns through roughly 400 rounds in the first hour. Rodriguez scavenges belts from a dead radio man, then from the company supply sergeant. By 1600 hours, the crew estimates Young has fired close to 2,000 rounds and changed barrels multiple times. His position holds. Across the perimeter, 9 other M60 teams do the same. The PAVN assaults collapse into the beaten zone. Bodies stack at 30 meters. Moore's riflemen, many armed with the new M16, contribute volume, but their 18-round magazines empty too fast. Reloading under fire costs seconds. The M60 teams never reload, they swap belts on the move. 1,700 hours, the PAVN commits a reserve battalion. Young's gun jams, a kinked belt. Godbolt clears it in 4 seconds, feeds the next 100 rounds, and Young resumes fire. The feed tray snap becomes a metronome for the perimeter. 1,800 hours, artillery fire from Landing Zone Falcon, 8 kilometers east, drops white phosphorus and high explosive on the PAVN staging areas. But the close-in fight, inside 100 meters, belongs to the machine guns. Moore later writes that his M60 teams broke the back of every assault. PAVN after-action reports captured in 1966 note that American machine gun fire caused 70% of casualties during the initial engagements. The 33rd Regiment loses 200 men on the 14th of November alone. Young survives the night, then 3 more days of contact. His M60 fires thousands of rounds across the battle. The barrel is replaced approximately a dozen times. On the 18th of November, Moore's battalion is extracted by helicopter. 67 Americans are dead, another 120 wounded. PAVN losses exceed 600 reported. Young's weapon is still operational when he boards the UH-1. Lieutenant Colonel Harold G. Moore, commanding officer of the 1st Battalion, 7th Cavalry, November 1965, tells reporters, "We won because our machine gunners never quit. Not the rifleman's courage, but the gunner's endurance. Not firepower in theory, but belts fed under fire." The 8th of January, 1967. Operation Cider Falls begins in the Iron Triangle, a 60-square-kilometer Viet Cong stronghold 30 kilometers northwest of Saigon. The U.S. 1st Infantry Division and the 173rd Airborne Brigade sweep the villages of Ben Suc and Rach Kien, looking for tunnel networks. The tunnels are everywhere, hundreds of kilometers of hand-dug passages connecting bunkers, hospitals, and supply caches. Infantrymen find tunnel entrances under huts, in stream banks, and beneath grave mounds. The M60 becomes a siege weapon. Teams set up at tunnel mouths and fire 50-round bursts straight into the dark. The noise is unbearable. The barrels glow orange. Viet Cong guerrillas retreat deeper or die in collapsed passages. But the real test comes in the open, when American infantry sweep through the jungle and stumble onto bunker complexes hidden under foliage. The 13th of January, Bravo Company, 2nd Battalion, 28th Infantry, encounters a fortified hamlet near Ben Suc. The company walks into interlocking fire from 4 machine gun bunkers at 70 meters. The lead platoon goes flat. Riflemen return fire, but their M16s cannot penetrate the log and earth walls. A gun team moves forward to a ditch 30 meters from the nearest bunker. The gunner opens fire, walking rounds across the bunker's firing slit. Tracers spark off the logs. The enemy gun goes silent. The assistant gunner snaps in the next belt. The gunner pivots and engages the second bunker. The ammo bearer drags another 600 rounds forward in a poncho. The barrel overheats. The A gunner swaps it without waiting for orders. The gun resumes firing in 3 seconds. Bravo Company's other 2 M60 teams follow suit, setting up base of fire positions that suppress all 4 bunkers. Engineers move forward with satchel charges. The bunkers are destroyed by 1500 hours. American casualties, 3 wounded. Viet Cong casualties, 12 confirmed. Bunker complex abandoned. The operation continues through the 26th of January. American forces uncover 540 kilometers of tunnels, destroy 1,200 structures, and capture 500,000 pages of documents. The M60 is fired so often that supply sergeants requisition extra barrels, 4 per gun instead of the standard 2. Colonel David Hackworth, 4th Battalion, 39th Infantry, 9th Infantry Division, January 1967, evaluating lessons from Cedar Falls, writes, "The machine gun is the squad. The squad is built to feed it." He orders his mechanized infantry squads to carry 2 M60s per M113 armored personnel carrier and double the basic load of ammunition to roughly 2,400 rounds per vehicle. His battalion adopts a new drill. Every rifleman humps 200 rounds of 7.62 mm linked ammo in addition to his own load. The M60 teams never run dry. In 31 contacts during February and March 1967, Hackworth's units suffer half the casualty rate of comparable battalions. Enemy body counts are 50% higher. The difference is ammunition flow. By mid-1967, Macy V circulates Cedar Falls lessons learned to all infantry units in the 3rd Corps. The recommendation is simple. Treat the M60 team as the maneuver element, the riflemen as the support. Units that adopt the doctrine thrive. Units that ignore it bleed. Not tactics, but feeding the gun. Not individual riflemen, but sustained fire. While doctrine emphasized the rifle, reality made the belt-fed gun irreplaceable. 03:15 hours, the 31st of January 1968, Tet Lunar New Year. Viet Cong sappers and People's Army of Vietnam regulars attack more than 100 cities, towns, and military installations across South Vietnam. In Saigon, 19 Viet Cong commandos blast through the wall of the U.S. Embassy compound on Thong Nhat Boulevard. In Hue, 10 battalions of Pea Van infantry seize the citadel and raise the National Liberation Front flag over the Ngo Mon Gate. In both cities, American infantry holds strong points with M60 machine guns. Saigon, 0400 hours. Military police and Marine security guards barricade the embassy's main building. Corporal James Marshall, a Marine with 3rd Battalion, sets up his M60 on the 2nd floor balcony. His assistant gunner, Lance Corporal Ruiz, stacks roughly 800 rounds of linked ammunition beside the sandbags. When the Viet Cong sappers breach the courtyard, Marshall opens fire at 30 meters. Tracers cut through the darkness. Muzzle flash illuminates the ornamental garden. Marshal fires in controlled 6-round bursts, pivoting to cover the entire compound. Ruiz feeds the belt and watches the barrel temperature. By 05:30, Marshal has expended several hundred rounds. The sappers retreat to the motor pool building. At 06:10, U.S. Army helicopters insert a reaction force on the embassy roof. Marshal's gun provides overwatch as the troops clear the compound room by room. By 09:15, all 19 Viet Cong are dead. Marshal's M60 never jams. Hugh, the 31st of January. Pavn infantry occupy 70% of the city, including the Imperial Palace and the Citadel's massive walls. U.S. Marines from 1st Battalion, 5th Marines and South Vietnamese Army units counterattack from MACV compound on the south bank of the Perfume River. The battle becomes a house-by-house grind through narrow streets and fortified buildings. Sergeant John Doc McElroy, a Navy corpsman attached to Alpha Company, 1st Battalion, 5th Marines, watches M60 teams anchor every assault. The Marines advance behind M60 suppression. One team fires into the target building while the rifle squad moves. When the gun stops to change barrels, the advance stops. When the gun resumes, the Marines move again. McElroy notes that machine gunners suffer very high casualty rates. PAVN snipers target them first, but losing the gunner does not stop the gun. The assistant gunner picks it up. The ammo bearer becomes the new A gunner. The feed tray snap continues. The 7th of February. Alpha Company assaults the Treasury Building, a French colonial structure converted into a Pavn strong point. Lance Corporal Eddie Lee, 19 from California, sets his M60 in a ground-floor window and fires hundreds of rounds over 2 hours. His assistant gunner, PFC Vargas, changes barrels multiple times. Lee's fire keeps Pavn soldiers pinned on the upper floors while Marines plant C4 charges. The building collapses at 1400 hours. Lee survives with flash burns on his forearms from the hot receiver. The 24th of February. The Marines recapture the Citadel. Casualty reports show very high losses among Marine machine gunners during the month-long battle. But most M60s remain operational, passed from hand to hand as crews are replaced. Sergeant John Doc McElroy, corpsman with 1st Battalion, 5th Marines, February 1968, tells Stars and Stripes, "We didn't win Hughes with rifles. We won it because the guns kept running." Pavn post-war accounts, published in 1982, confirmed that American machine gun fire inflicted the majority of casualties and prevented reinforcement of occupied positions. Not the Marine rifleman's accuracy, but the gunner's persistence, not individual heroism, but team endurance. While sappers breached walls, M60 teams held the line. The 10th of May, 1969, the 3rd Battalion, 187th Infantry Regiment, the Rakkasans of the 101st Airborne Division, begins the assault on Hill 937, a mountain in the A Sao Valley near the Laotian border, known to soldiers as Joy 937 or Hamburger Hill. The 29th Pa Vin Regiment holds the summit, dug into bunkers reinforced with logs and earth. The hill rises 937 meters above sea level. The jungle is so dense that visibility is measured in arm lengths. The Rakkasans attack uphill in single file, following trails hacked by machetes. Pavn machine guns and mortars shred the lead platoons. The Americans pull back, regroup, and attack again and again. Over 10 days, the 3rd Battalion, 187th launches 10 major assaults. Each assault depends on M60 teams suppressing bunkers while riflemen maneuver. Private First Class Luis Martinez, 21 from Texas, is a gunner in Bravo Company. He carries his M60, 23 pounds, up a 60-degree slope slick with mud and blood. His assistant gunner, Specialist 4 Henderson, drags several hundred rounds in bandoliers. The ammo bearer, PFC Kim, humps another 800 in steel cans. The 12th of May, 0730 hours, Bravo Company assaults the southern ridgeline. Martinez sets up 30 meters below a bunker complex and opens fire. He cannot see the enemy, only muzzle flashes in the green gloom. Henderson feeds belt after belt. Martinez burns through hundreds of rounds in 20 minutes. The barrel overheats. Steam rises from the receiver. Henderson pulls the barrel, drops it, slaps in a cold one. The gun resumes firing. Kim scavenges ammunition from a dead machine gunner to their left. Martinez's fire suppresses 2 bunkers, long enough for engineers to close with satchel charges. 1 bunker is destroyed, the other hold. Pavan counter-fire kills Henderson at 0815. Kim takes his place, feeding belts while Martinez keeps firing. By 0900 hours, the crew estimates they've expended well over 1,000 rounds. Bravo Company withdraws at 1000 hours, unable to reach the summit. Martinez carries his gun back down the slope, barrel glowing orange. The 15th of May, the Rakkasans commit additional companies from 1st Battalion, 506th Infantry. M60 teams leapfrog up the hill, one team firing while the next moves forward 10 meters. The tactic is slow, exhausting, and effective. The 18th of May, artillery fires 150 rounds of high explosive onto the summit. Tactical air. Support drops napalm and 500-pound bombs. But the close-in fight, inside 50 meters, belongs to the guns. The 20th of May, 1400 hours, the Rakkasans reach the summit. 72 Americans are dead, 372 wounded. PAVN losses exceed 600 reported. Private First Class Luis Martinez, M60 gunner with 3rd Battalion, 187th Infantry, May 1969, interviewed by Stars and Stripes, says, "I don't remember thinking, just feeding and firing." His M60 fired thousands of rounds over 10 days. He replaced the barrel multiple times. The weapon never catastrophically failed. Post-battle maintenance reports show that most M60s used at Hamburger Hill required barrel replacement and gas tube cleaning, but only 8% were deadlined for parts. Not air support, but belt-fed fire. Not the rifleman's assault, but the gunner's suppression. While artillery pulverized the summit, M60 teams gave riflemen the seconds needed to move. By 1970, the M60 machine gun is no longer a support weapon in American infantry doctrine. It is the weapon. Rifle squads exist to protect and feed it. Ammunition bearers hump 70-pound loads through Cambodia and Laos. Assistant gunners sleep with spare barrels. Gunners know their weapon's serial number, its quirks, the exact round count when the barrel starts to warp. And they know that in every contact, the squad survives only as long as the feed tray snap continues. The 1st of May, 1970, President Richard Nixon authorizes ground operations into Cambodia to destroy North Vietnamese Army sanctuaries and supply depots along the border. The 1st Cavalry Division, 25th Infantry Division, and ARVN units cross into the Parrots Beak and Fishhook regions. The operations, codenamed Toan Thang 42, 43, and 44, are deep raids 30 to 40 kilometers beyond the border, with no permanent fire support bases. Infantry units march light and fast, carrying only what they can hump. M60 teams become the logistics nightmare and the tactical key. Each squad carries 1 M60, roughly 2,400 rounds of ammunition, and 3 barrels. The gun and ammunition weigh close to 95 pounds, distributed across 3 men. The 4th of May, 1100 hours, Alpha Company, 2nd Battalion, 8th Cavalry Air Assaults into Landing Zone Brown, 18 kilometers inside Cambodia, near the town of Snuolm. Intelligence reports a PAVN supply cache, guarded by 2 companies. Alpha Company finds the cache, estimated 60 tons of rice, small arms, and mortar rounds hidden under tarps, and sets up a defensive perimeter. 1400 hours, PAVN infantry counterattacks from 3 directions. A gun team anchors the northern arc. The gunner is Sergeant William Cruz, 25, from New York. His assistant gunner is Corporal Tran, an ethnic Chinese Vietnamese who enlisted in the U.S. Army after emigrating in 1968. The ammo bearer, PFC Jackson, carries roughly 1,400 rounds in cloth bandoliers and steel cans. The PAVN assault comes through scrub jungle at 80 meters. Cruz opens fire, 6 round bursts, sweeping left to right. Tran feeds the belt, eyes on the receiver. Jackson stacks ammo cans within arm's reach. Cruz fires several hundred rounds in the first 10 minutes. The barrel heats. Tran swaps it. Cruz resumes fire without breaking rhythm. The PAVN infantry goes to ground, but mortar rounds begin impacting inside the perimeter. 1500 hours. Alpha Company calls for extraction. UH-1 helicopters inbound, 20 minutes out. Cruz's team must hold the northern arc until the birds arrive. He fires continuously, 6 round bursts every 4 seconds to keep the enemy suppressed. Jackson redistributes ammunition from other squad members. Everyone dumps rifle magazines and carries belts instead. By 1600 hours, the crew has burned through most of their load. Tran has changed barrels twice. Cruz switches to 3 round bursts to stretch the ammunition. 1620 hours, the first UH-1 lands. Cruz's gun covers the loading. When the helicopter lifts off, Cruz's team is still firing. The second bird lands. Cruz and Tran run for it, Jackson feeding the last belt as they back toward the skids. The gun fires its final rounds as the helicopter climbs. Alpha Company extracts with 3 wounded, 0 dead. Cruz's M60 fired over 1,000 rounds in 90 minutes. The barrel is warped and must be replaced. The gas tube is fouled but functional. General Crichton Abrams, commander of U.S. Military Assistance Command. Vietnam, June 1970, reviewing after-action reports from Cambodia, issues guidance to all units. Sustain the base of fire, everything else is secondary. He directs supply officers to increase M60 ammunition allocations by 30% and mandates that every infantry company carry a minimum of 4 spare barrels per gun. The Cambodian incursion lasts 60 days. American units seize roughly 23,000 tons of supplies by U.S. reporting and confirm approximately 1,600 PAVN killed. M60 teams fire millions of rounds. The 8th of February, 1971, Operation Lam Son 719 begins, an ARVN cross-border assault into Laos to cut the Ho Chi Minh Trail near the town of Chapone. U.S. ground forces are prohibited from entering Laos by congressional mandate, but American helicopter units provide transport and fire support. ARVN infantry divisions, 1st Airborne, Marines, Rangers, air assault onto hilltop landing zones along Route 9. PAVN armor and infantry counterattack with T-54 tanks, 130-meter artillery, and massed infantry. The ARVN units, many equipped with U.S.-supplied M60 machine guns, anchor their defenses around the guns. The 6th of March, 0800 hours, Fire Support Base 31, held by the ARVN 1st Infantry Division, comes under assault by 2 PAVN battalions, supported by tanks. ARVN machine gunners fire from sandbagged bunkers at ranges under 100 meters. The guns hold until U.S. helicopter gunships arrive at 0930. The 16th of March, ARVN units begin withdrawing from Laos under heavy pressure. The withdrawal becomes a fighting retreat. Units leapfrog back along Route 9, machine gun teams covering each bound. A PAVN sapper officer with the 304th Division, 1968, interviewed in 1985, recalls, "We always targeted the machine gunners first. Kill them, and the Americans panic." But in Lam Son 719, PAVN forces discover that killing the gunner does not stop the gun. ARVN assistant gunners pick up the M60 and continue firing. By late March, ARVN forces complete the withdrawal. Casualties are heavy. RVN losses number in the low thousands. U.S. estimates place PAVN losses above 10,000. After-action analysis by Macy V. attributes ARVN survival to sustained machine gun fire during the withdrawal. Units that maintained ammunition flow and fire discipline suffered significantly fewer casualties than those that ran dry. The lesson is the same across 6 years. The gun decides contact. Feed it, and the squad survives. Starve it, and the enemy closes. From Ia Drang to Cambodia to Laos, every battle confirms the same tactical reality. Not the rifleman, but the machine gunner. Not aimed fire, but volume. Not the weapon, but the team that feeds it. The feed tray snap becomes the sound of American infantry holding ground in Vietnam. Not courage alone, but belts fed under fire. Not doctrine, but ammunition flow. While officers planned maneuver, machine gunners decided outcomes. The heaviest weapon bore the heaviest burden and decided who lived. By 1972, as American ground combat units withdraw from Vietnam, the M60 machine gun has become the most critical weapon in the infantry arsenal, more important than the M16 rifle, the M79 grenade launcher, or the M72 Law anti-tank rocket. Training programs at Fort Benning and Fort Polk restructure infantry doctrine around the gun. Squads maneuver to support the M60, not the other way around. The Army's 1973 Field Manual, FM 7-10, the Rifle Company, codifies the lesson. The machine gun is the base of fire, the squad's center of gravity, and the decisive weapon in close combat. But the cost is measured in men. Machine gunners suffer casualty rates significantly higher than riflemen across the war. PAVN and Viet Cong doctrine prioritizes killing the gunner. Snipers, RPG teams, and mortar crews target the M60 first. Yet the gun survives because the team survives. Assistant gunners become gunners. Ammo bearers become assistant gunners. Riflemen become ammo bearers. The weapon outlasts the men. Between 1965 and 1973, U.S. forces fire billions of rounds of 7.6251 mm ammunition in Vietnam. M60 machine guns account for a large share of that total. The gun's mechanical failure rate is high. Jamming, broken firing pins, warped barrels, and feed tray malfunctions plague units in the field. But the teams adapt. They carry extra parts, file down burrs, replace springs, and swap components between guns. The M60 becomes a Frankenstein weapon. No two are identical. All are reliable enough. Infantry officers learn to judge a unit's effectiveness not by marksmanship scores or physical fitness, but by how well the machine gun teams perform under fire. Do they change barrels without hesitation? Do they maintain fire discipline? Do they keep ammunition flowing? If yes, the unit survives contact. If no, men die. The M60 remains in U.S. service until the 1990s, replaced eventually by the M240. But in Vietnam, from 1965 to 1973, no weapon is more important. Not the helicopter, not the artillery, not the jet fighter. The M60 machine gun, and the three-man team that feeds it, decides infantry combat. The feed tray snap is the sound of survival. War is not won by the weapon, but by the man who keeps it running. The M60 machine gun weighs 23 pounds, but the burden is heavier. Barrels to swap, belts to feed, jams to clear, all under fire. In Vietnam, infantry squads learn that the rifleman's skill matters less than the gunner's endurance. Feed the gun, win the fight. Heaviest weapon, heaviest burden. Feed it or fall.